Good afternoon, everybody.
7 o'clock, man. Let's talk about today's bite, fellas.
I
Give
went
us a
first
chance.
last time, so now you got to tell me about your today's bite.
I will. We will. Definitely so. We'll let some folks get on board with us and we'll start the discussion. What's your weather like out there, Dustin?
What's what?
What's your weather today?
Today was gorgeous. Light wind and mid 50s. The light wind kept you just cool enough to keep on, your hoodie and layers, but really comfortable and fun fishing. When the wind picks up, though, it can be miserable. So we kind of try to pick our days here until it gets better.
Yeah.
It looks like next week we have a good cold front pushing in, so I'm not looking forward to it. Cold front with wind. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, can't wait for that good weather to start lining up. What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. Today actually started really foggy this morning, called for high winds. And, we never did really get the high wind, but we got the fog in this morning. And it kind of rolled out about 9:30 this morning. And it settled down, light wind, and
Sweet.
good
Ain't
hail
that
away.
the best when you plan on it being super windy and then you get out there and it holds off for you?
All right, I'll kick it out this week. Today's bite for me, it's kind of the discussion tonight is going to be fishing some current for crappie and locations I look for and different things. But my today's bite was I was fishing up on the upper end of our reservoir up in the river system, and we've had a good bit of rain the last couple of weeks, but uh, I actually went into some backwaters and found some eddy water. And we're going to talk about eddies here in a little bit as well. But I found some backwaters that was out of the current, and the fish were absolutely loaded in there.
Heck
And,
yeah.
we started out using with the fog and everything else. I started out using some oranges and some different colors. I've been using some darker colors, and then the sun popped out about 9 o'clock, and all of a sudden changed colors to more of a natural tone, some monkey milk, some glaciers, and we wound up catching some absolutely pigs.
Did you guys catch your, I guess, would you have one client or two?
I had one today. We just did a live scoping training
Oh,
session,
yeah, that's right. Okay.
so it was all good. How was your today's bite?
Man, 70s in Texas. Randall, that's awesome. Um, Today, me and Ken jumped in the boat this morning and went to Elk City, that big fish lake we've
You
been
know,
telling. Yep. In Kansas. So I haven't been there in a few months. It's been man, longer than that. It's been a while since I've been there, but just from history, I knew to probably just hop in the channel and start checking, scanning, covering water. And right now there is fish absolutely everywhere roaming. And in the middle of shad, and there was a line of shad through the whole entire channel from the beginning of the lake all the way to the end. If you wanted to be in shad, there's bait fish everywhere. So we just started pretty close to the boat ramp and started just following the channel and caught some really big fish. And it was just a consistent, steady flow of fishing all day. We had a blast. About fell off the boat laughing a few times, but I think his big fish was around 240, and mine was probably two and a quarter, 230. But a handful of monsters. If y'all will go to GFB Outdoors, look at them fish we caught today. We had a blast. A lot of good eaters, and then if you keep weaving through them, you can find some giants, and that's what we were there to do. Try to find a 3 pounder. Never did. We did find them, but I was just talking to Brad before this. We had the hardest time, and they do this year in and out there. It seems like when and what we're thinking is pressured fish, but
yeah,
when you get your bait close to these, I mean, I will line it up and I know it's a monster fish. My bait will get right on their nose, and as soon as I get close enough to where it's time for them to react, they'll just scoot over or just kick their fins and go a few feet in front. They just nowhere around, like they're dodging the bait, and
right.
it's crazy. I mean, I was following them things. I would chase one fish forever if I knew it was 2 or 3 pounds, and they would. It just sometimes it did not matter, and I think it's because there's so many. Because this is a super pressured lake, especially now, and I think there's so many people fishing for them. Them older fish, the bigger fish that we're targeting, are getting super good at knowing what a bait is and what's not, and they're just getting super aware of a boat slap, everything like that. Because just so happens the little fish, the 10 to 13 inch fish, would come up and wreck your bait. But
Yeah.
when you're on the next level fish, a 7 to 10 year old crappie, the 2 to 3 pound mark, I mean, it was a whole different ball game getting them to bite. So you have to hit them just at the right time where they're hungry enough and kind of throw caution to the wind. But it was fun and challenging. We were just, like I said, we were out there just having fun, but also trying to make sure everything's tuned up for tournament season, do a little practicing, and Lord
Yeah.
knows I needed it. I'm rusty.
Now, what kind of baits were you using up there, and kind of go some
Yeah,
more details with?
you bet. Bait was actually a big thing because we didn't bring any live bait, and we were trying out the 15-foot ghost, different rods Ken's brought. But I started out with my favorite, the bleeding shad, and then from last week's video, I had the slab tickler already tied on it, so I left it
Yeah.
on there. And I noticed one of my best bites would be dropping that down there, getting it close enough. When you're in the area, don't get close enough to them yet until you start. I would start whacking that metal of the tickler off of the eyelet and make a clicking noise, and it kind of would catch their attention, and they would already kind of set up before you got to two of them. That was a good little tip to get some to bite. And I noticed we downsized several times we tried such a small hair jig, it was hard to hook them. Tried a tiny hair jig. The best thing that we found color wise combination and bait wise was the itty bit, bone white, and chartreuse. And I am telling you, Ken was throwing this color right here, the exact one. And I would drop on these fish 2 or 3 times and it would spook off. I was like, all right, try that. Because I was just kind of testing. I like to try different stuff just to see if I can kind of break the code on them. And I bet it was 3 times in a row. I would have a fish already messed up, trying to run from a bait. He would swing that by them. They would turn and come and hit it. So we were on to something there. Couldn't quite get something set in stone, but that by far, if I was going to go fish tomorrow and try to fish for money, that would be the first bait I threw on. And the water was super, super dingy. I don't even know. Clarity might be 5-6 inches, if that, maybe even. It was like Grenada. I mean, it was muddy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, our water here was pretty dingy as well. It was considered muddy for our standard. And that's usually a typical thing in the wintertime. And,
yes,
I think one of the main things, and I'm seeing a lot of comments from you guys, and a lot of people are having a little tough time right now. Hopefully we can kind of help you out with that and show you some little things to make your catches go up a little bit. Keep on showing out these catches, guys.
Yeah, Randall, I agree. Them fish were cranky. That's the best way to explain it. It was something in the air because I was getting so frustrated. Make you just want to. At some point, what I tell you guys is to always, if there's one not biting, don't spend too much time on it because there's another one that will. But when the 5 in a row don't bite, it will drive you absolutely nuts. So we just had to keep moving, and it took a lot of patience. But just when we stayed moving was our best bet, because you would find some of those fish that were just ready to eat and would come up and get you. You could have spent all day long on one fish out there.
We know John Mayo, here he comes in with a comment right now, his report. Here's today's bite. Let's see what John's got here.
Yeah, John, I have actually noticed that. It says that on the Big Four, they're still sunbathing. I've seen videos, Patrick Stone and a few other people, they're flying through there and they literally are not looking more than 5 foot. And when they're dropping they say the fish under that 5 foot range they're not even worth fishing for. They're super finicky and aggressive. So they're staying for those sunbathing, whatever we call them, whatever they're doing. Those shallower fish are a lot more aggressive. It's almost like they're set up. They're down deeper, and when they come up to feed, they move up to the shad line or whatever, and they come up to feed, but then they'll go back down eventually. So those fish that are up are already ready to feed.
A lot of times when I think of that and seen that, in my opinion, in the past, that top water column has to be a little bit warmer, and it's bringing the bait fish up there. And then also it's going to bring the active fish up there to hunt for those bait fish. So it's just like anything else.
That was my theory too there. And I've noticed too, a lot of times when you have a wounded shad, when the bait fish get wounded, some of them will come to the top and they'll kind of float to the top, fighting it off. I notice at Grand, a lot of times we'll see them up there. If fish knock them, and they'll go up. So maybe I don't know. There's a lot of theories, but some of them fish out there in Grenada are so shallow they could hit the top water.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. Even on Lake Washington and other lakes that have fished in the past, and it seems like if the sun pops up, those fish really come up to the top in that muddy water.
Crazy. So
At least, go ahead.
go ahead. Quick question for John Mayo. When you're seeing
Mhm.
them sunbathe like that, when the cloud cover comes out and it gets super dingy outside, will they push back down or do they stay shallow? I'm curious about that. I'm curious if that makes a difference. Like, do you know a night and day difference? If it's super cloudy, are they still going to be up or will they
Yeah.
fall back down?
I'm gonna go back to this thing, and uh, we want to kind of help out these guys that just getting into their sport. And this is a terminology for crappie fishermen that, you know, and regular fishermen as well. But you might never heard this term before, and that's a current eddy. And a lot of people say that, especially in a current system or river system or spillway or anything that has current in it, you're always going to look for an eddy. And a definition, in my opinion, for an eddy is that slack water that the current's not getting pushed through. Crappie, in my mind, in my opinion, has always been really known as a lazy fish. So they're wanting to get into a section of the water that's easy for them to sit there and not have to fight that current. So, like today, today's bite, I knew we had current in the river, so I had to look for eddies or slack water. And what I mean by slack water is non-current water. And sure enough, I found some deeper water, and I've known about these places that I fished today for a while now. But so I went and looked for areas that I knew that the current wasn't going to affect, and it pushed the fish out of the river into these eddy systems and current eddy breaks. But when somebody says current eddies, they're looking for an area that has that slack water that's not getting pushed through an area. Because, like I said, I think a lot of times that crappie, in my opinion, are really a lazy fish in general. They're wanting to get into the easiest spot they can get and relax and hunt for prey and not fight that constant current. So, especially for you guys tonight listening, that's what crappie fishermen or fishermen in general are saying whenever they're talking about a current eddy, is that
Yeah.
slack water.
Almost the best way to understand that too is just like us and animals and everything else, like with wind. We can't
Yeah.
stand wind, wind blowing in our face. Ducks on a pond, they'll always go to the side where the wind's blowing over the hill and they're in calm water. Same kind of way with fish. I think they don't like the current and stuff in their face constantly, so they will get into slack water as well.
Got a pretty good question here about color and profile from the YouTube side of things. He's asking, do you think jig profile means more than color?
Mm,
My
I
mind, in my opinion, I think they both mean a lot.
yeah,
Um, you know, it's all about matching that particular pattern for that day. And us as anglers, no matter if we're tournament fishing or guide fishing, at the end of the day, we're always trying to really fine tune a pattern.
absolutely.
So it's not always the colors the biggest thing, and it's not always the profiles the biggest thing. It could be the colors the biggest of the two.
Yeah,
So I think it's something in my mind that I'm always going to experiment. And one thing that in my mind that's really made me fall in love with Bobby Garland jigs through the years is all the different colors, all the different profiles that we have. And it's really helped me through the years stay on top of crappie fishing.
yeah,
So it gives me an opportunity to switch those profiles from the itty bits like Dustin was talking about to, a profile that's even as big as this slab doctor. This is a bait that was designed to shoot under docks and piers and such, but I found it through the years that it's great for putting on a spider rigs to, dead sticking in front of a fish, just have those two little flippers going, but it's changing that profile up.
yeah.
Um,
I agree with that. I think you nailed it when you say like day by day is different because certain days it really doesn't matter. I think you could wiggle your finger in the water, they're going to bite it. But days like today, what I'm explaining to you, this white and chartreuse was a night and
yeah,
day difference between if I put on just an all black or whatever. The white and chartreuse was different. So maybe whatever they were seeing with the white and chartreuse with the clarity of that water today made a difference, but
yep,
tomorrow it may not. So I think having multiple colors and multiple
yep.
sizes and stuff you can throw at them is definitely key.
You can usually tell in my boat at the end of the day if you walked up to it and you see different colors and different profiles littered across the deck of the boat or even the back of the boat.
Yeah.
Because I'm scrambling trying to get all those little keys together.
If I had to pick one, though, I would definitely have different profiles instead of different colors.
Yep.
So if someone offered me only one profile but 100 colors, and someone offered me 100 profiles in the same color, I would take profiles. But they both count certain days for sure. I promise you.
Yeah, I got two other comments. There's Wesley, big Sky Squat chair. He's saying he thinks as well the big profile, and John, he's profile guy as well. And that's all about every day and what we all see on the lake. But hopefully you guys can get in there and if you're not catching fish, change that profile up.
Yeah.
Last week my Thursday bite was instead of looking for fish suspended, I had to really look for fish that were on the bottom. The fish suspended wouldn't bite.
You came home with a headache, didn't you?
Well, I finally figured them out, and it was actually the only fish I could catch that day were the fish on the bottom below the suspended fish.
I've seen that before. Yeah.
And that's something that I normally wouldn't look for. But on that particular day, it was definitely the fish on the bottom were the only ones that I could actually get to bite.
That's crazy. See, and you put all that together in the day you're sitting there fishing. So again, it goes to each day is different. Hey, Tyler has a question. This is a good buddy of mine, and you may know this one. Looking to dig out a pond for crappie heaven. How deep does it need to be for crappie to survive throughout the year, like through the winter and everything? So say our ponds freeze over here. How deep? Do you know that question?
I wouldn't know by the.
I've heard 9, 10, but I was going to get your. You've been around a lot.
I would say 12 plus just to be on the safe side, in my opinion. But like I said, I'm not really a biologist by no means.
Yeah.
But more than likely you can contact your local DFR, and they'll definitely give you recommendations on that. One thing that I would look at if I was going to put a pond in for crappie is I would look for some of those hybrid species that's out.
Oh, yeah.
And even looking back on the podcast that we did, I guess it'll be this coming 2 years ago with a biologist here in Mississippi that works for the National Wildlife and Fishery. They've developed some hybrid crappie that can go into these smaller impoundments that, if I was going to build a pond, that their growth rate is just out of this world. They're they're good for smaller bodies because they won't reproduce and over populated as well. So I would suggest contacting your local DFR.
He already has a really big pond. It's just it dries up bad, and he's wanting to dig it deeper. So I remember us talking about that. So
let's see what other guys. I know we got a lot of guys talking tonight. I appreciate everybody coming on here and shooting these comments out for us. And we want to talk about today's bite. Keep on with them, fellas.
Wesley, that's a good point too. On live scope, you see every fish gets under your bait and looks at it from below. At that point, the profile is what they're looking at.
Yep.
I agree with that. I mean, surely that's what they're doing, unless they think they're stalking on the bait or whatever it is. But they definitely are watching it. I think when they're following it too, they're doing the same thing. They're following it to get the feeling and look at everything they've got going on, what a normal fish does.
We got Nathan Wood from YouTube. And he's asking, do you recommend sickle hooks or round bit hooks? And I've got my little theory on that. And ones I like sickle hooks a lot if I know that I'm not going to use live bait. Seems to me a sickle hook has a smaller barb on it. And, if you put a minnow, especially on a sickle hook, it's going to come off. And so if I have any intentions on possibly tipping a jig, no matter if it's, plastic or hair or whatever, I wouldn't use a sickle hook.
Yeah, I would say I use a round hook more than anything, but a hookup ratio with the sickle hook seems to be better for me. So if I'm just going to go catch a mess, it seems like a sickle hook sticks fish more, but it's a really close runner up with the round hook, and I feel like I've got a lot stronger hook. No weak spot in the metal. So I go with the round hook, but neither one's a wrong answer. I don't feel like.
Yeah, I think it's a personal preference kind of thing, but
Brad Edgar, that's a good question. Do you ever use live shad? We were struggling last week, so I netted some shad, thinking no way they would eat this. They did. They didn't want anything to do with it. Caught all fish on storm minnows. Actually, here at Elk City, the lake I'm telling you about, there's a lot of locals that will net the shad. They'll go out there in the channel or wherever these fish are roaming. They'll throw the net and catch these shad, but they're a lot of times not huge shad. I mean, I wouldn't throw on like a 4 to 6 inch shad, but if you caught shad 2 to 3 inches, you absolutely can catch them because I've done it before. We've had them floating out there, that were wounded or dying, and I've hooked them on and caught fish like crazy. So shad work just as good as minnows if you have the smaller size shad. But I wouldn't put on real big gizzard shad, especially if they're alive. But a wounded, dead shad works really well.
And this goes back to even Todd Huckabee. I know he's said it a lot in the past, and I tried it this fall a fair amount of times. He would cut just a piece of that shad off or minnow off, might be just the tail section, and hook it on. And more or less, he's adding it for the scent that's coming out there, the ammonia acids or what have you. But
another thing about scent, that does make a difference, and that will tell you sometimes, scent makes a difference. You can throw a jig with no shad piece on it and a jig with shad, and there is a night and day difference sometimes. So there's got to be something to do with that, with what they put off. Tim Smith, that's a good question. How long will you stay on fish that won't bite? Did that all day long today, and I would say it depends on how big the fish is. If it's not a really big fish and gets me excited, I'm trying maybe one time. He don't want to bite, I'll leave him. But if it's a monster, I give it about 3 or 4 shots. And by that, I mean, I'll drop on it. If he follows it, he really got me excited. So I'm going to follow him again, try different bait profiles until he just keeps running. And then 3 or 4 times of him turning up or just keeps moving from the bait or running, then I'm giving up. I'm going to move on, sadly.
We got a today's bite crappie report from Crappie Kane on YouTube. He's got West Point Lake, Georgia, was on fire yesterday. Big girls were suspended over flooded timber in 25 to 50 foot of water and would chase jigs. The schools and groups were scattered, and you had to keep moving for a limit. Man, that's an awesome bite right there.
Yeah.
It's fun to me. I'm ready for those fun days, and that's definitely a fun day, and we don't have to work quite as hard. But
exactly.
Man, we definitely appreciate that.
Right now, you got to work for what you get around where we're at. Grand Lake, though, is on fire. That's one place, guys, if you're around here, you can go catch a limit and smoke some fish. And especially if you're just fun fishing, there's a lot of small fish to catch before you catch your keepers, and that's a blast. But round hooks, yeah. Joseph Bridges is saying no. He said he's telling the truth. Tell me not to say that, but he fishes Elk City a lot, so he probably is one I'm talking about. Throws those shad out there.
There's Wesley. Fish in the creek channel suspended around bait fish at Bugs Island. Water has a heavy stain. Aggressive fish high in the water column. That's kind of sounds like a good typical pattern that I look for every day.
Sounds like the story all the way around there.
Here's a good question from YouTube, and I guess it's more what he's saying for his today's bite. But it says, when they chase up to the boat and won't commit, one of us casts and pulls the fish to the boat and then drops vertical once they get close enough to the boat. I just think some of these fish, they just won't bite that particular time. It might be a particular time of day.
It's a hard pill to swallow, but sometimes it does not matter what you do to that fish. The only way to catch him is a throw net. I'm telling you.
Dynamite.
I'm telling you.
But keep it looking.
So frustrating. There was 2 fish today that made me absolutely want to cry. And from just seeing the screen a lot and fishing a lot, I'm telling you, these 2 fish, I'll dream about them tonight. And they didn't even give me the time of day. Well, actually, one. This is the worst part. Me and Ken were talking. We were dying. But one monster, she just turned up and came up to that bait just close enough to where you almost could feel it. Yep. And Ken just set the hook. And I said, you wanted it to bite so bad that you felt something on the end of the line. But yeah, we were just dying. We had a good time today.
I got a question from YouTube. Castor Creek Customs. Hey, Brad, do you think long line out of the front of the boat versus out of the back of the boat is better one way, or is it more of just whatever a person prefers? In calm water or light chop or anything like that, I don't think it really matters all that much. I think if you get on a lake and it has a roll effect to it or a pretty good chop, um, I like having poles directly out of the boat. It seems to me that those poles don't twist and turn and rise and fall and bounce. One of the good things about long lining is, weather conditions as far as waves and such don't affect the bite. It doesn't affect the presentation of those jigs to those fish. I like long lining out of the backside of my boat. And like I said, especially on a really rough day, I'll try to turn my poles directly out the back of the boat. That way we don't have that big roll going on the boat. So it depends on the current conditions on if one would be better than the other. If it's really windy and choppy out, I would say directly out of the back was definitely be the way to go on that as far as long line and
This
jigs.
this might be a silly question, but
I don't know.
do you face the wind or do you go with the wind when you're long line and big wind like with the waves? Is it less waves from the back? Like do you go with the wind?
There is conditions that you'll definitely have to go with the wind.
Gotcha.
Um, with today's batteries, with lithium batteries, and shout out to Eagle brand there by the mad scientist. But if you can pull, years past with lead acid batteries, we would luckily get 8 hours of fishing with leaded cell batteries. But now with lithium batteries, we can, I can long line jigs over a mile an hour for at least 2 full days.
Oh yeah.
I'm talking 16 to 20 hours of a hard pull. So,
Mhm.
you know,
And I guess the wind could get you moving too fast too, huh?
it can.
Yeah,
It can,
I can see that.
especially in a aluminum boat or anything like that. But, uh, I got a big old Ranger that sits down and it'll take more
Yeah,
wind than I want to put it in most days. But,
right.
so
Shane Lynch, that's a good question too. Does rattles spook big crappie in muddy water, or does it help? Depends on the fish, but I'm today it helped. Some days it may not, but today I would say yeah, it helps. But tomorrow I might not. It's just something you want to add to your arsenal. I feel like, and try one day if nothing else is working. Try to give it something with rattle. Um, they make jig heads now with rattlers in it and all kinds of pretty stuff. Today I had the slab tickler on top of my jig head and it would make a clicking sound.
yeah,
I definitely would add it.
that's my asked about the scent question. And,
Yeah,
it's to me that scent is one of those keys that some days it's going to make a difference.
exactly.
A lot of days it probably won't, but it's those days that's tough, like I was talking about earlier, that
Mhm.
my boat's going to look like Skittles have exploded in there, just by the different colors of baits that I'm going to try. But uh, I'm going to try a little bit of everything when it comes to scent and different things like that. And you know, Bobby Garland has a scent, the slab jam, that's you can put it on anything. I know when it came out and I was pulling crankbaits a lot in the summertime, I actually put it on crankbaits.
Really?
Yep. And it would stay on crankbaits for hours. And it's just like a gel that you can put on anything. You could put it on a neck and hook if you wanted to. But,
Mhm.
um, I've always, especially tried scent, uh, on those tougher days. This kind of goes back to, and there's Nick DeWolf there. He's chiming in on something that I seen his comment the other day, and I'm sure this is going to, I
Yeah.
want to talk to him about this, and I
Yeah.
will talk to him about this. The,
Hmm.
the question was about uh,
Dragging the chain.
dragging the chains.
Yeah.
I'm definitely like going to get Nick on here one night, and we're going to talk
Yeah.
about this.
Because I was gonna say, I think I know he drags the chain in really windy days. I think it helps stabilize the boat. But as far as what else he uses as, you never know with him, man. You never know.
He's a wild card.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. David Fowler, it's a good question too. A lot of people ask me the same question. Tips to keep from spooking the shallow fish that are like high up in the water column, like 2 to 5 foot deep. And I would say zoom that live scope out a little bit and see that fish further ahead of you first, and then start setting up on him way before he feels you coming. So if you see he's 3 foot deep, 40, 50 foot out, then start slowing everything down and just start creeping up to them. Okay. So then when you're creeping up to them, I lost you there for a second, Brad. But when you start creeping up to that fish, let loose off your trolling motor. One of my biggest things was if you let go of your trolling motor when you're floating into them, using the wind or whatever you're doing, get enough speed. Like if the wind's blowing at you hard, get enough speed going up and then let go of it like 20 foot out or so. And then just kind of drift into them while you're putting a bait on them. And if they're super aggressive, 30 feet, pitch that thing 30 feet at them, start far as you can away. That's the best way I would say to sneak up to those fish shallow.
Well, another thing I would do is cast out. If they're aggressive enough and you can cast to them, and that's really become one of my favorite ways with live scope and over the last 2 years is casting the crappie. And, in summertime when it's hot and the water's slick and they can really feel the presence of a boat.
Yes.
When it gets anywhere near them, I've really fell in love with casting to them. And
cast them or grab one of them big old 18-foot rods and reach out there and kiss them with it.
Yeah. But casting to them is definitely a good way to catch them when they're high in that water.
The shallower, though, the lighter you want to go so your bait doesn't go past them. You want to keep that bait up above those shallow fish, too.
On the setup like that, especially, if you're wanting to cast, and I always use a double jig setup whenever I'm casting. I'm going to have the little bit of heavier size, say if they're 6 feet deep. I'm going to use a 1/16.
So you'll run a double even if they're that shallow.
Yep, I'm gonna use like a 1/16, and even on the backside, I'm gonna use a very small. This is a 1/64 on the back end with the itty bit. And I mean that's a very little small deal. And some people will say, "Well, why are you using 2 jigs?" And the number one reason I'm gonna use 2 jigs is one, far as I can see it.
Well, tell the truth. It's so when you miss the first shot, you have one backing it up.
That's right.
That's what I would always say is if you miss your target or your bait goes under, you've got another one up there.
People ask all the time, do you ever catch doubles at the same time? And the answer is absolutely.
Yeah.
I've done it no telling how many times.
That's always fun. Jacob Stevenson asked me, when it comes to those big fish that just won't commit, have you ever came back a little later in the day and tried to find those same fish? Really good question. Today I did not, but I have done that. And I'm kind of learning on that because I think it definitely is a timing thing. I think what he's getting at is maybe they weren't feeding when I came by, but maybe later in the day that they are, and they put the feed back on. So that's a good question. I think those fish certain times of the day surely are eating. I'm just running into them at the wrong time of day. No doubt. That's why I just keep moving, try to find the fish that are eating.
Yeah. A lot of time on brush pile fish too. If you see a lot of fish on a brush pile, you can, catch, say 5 or 10 of them or something, and they kind of shut down, come back half an hour later.
That's right.
Or whatever the time allows you. And you might just catch another 5 or 10 more, but a lot of days, 5 or 10 more put you on the limit.
Exactly. Heck, I've been to a brush pile that we might have caught 2 or 3 fish. And the client of mine, was really pushing that. Man, there was a lot of fish there. We could see him like, let's hit it on the way back. And we were probably, 10 fish short or so. We went there and absolutely demolished them. And we started there in the morning and it was slow. And then this was probably around lunchtime. And I'm talking smashing. We could have caught 3 limits sitting there. So it definitely is a timing thing. If you hit it just right, no doubt about it.
I've got a question from Randall on YouTube, and he says, how would you fish a lake without a river channel? Just a few creek channels, example, a bowl with some timber. And I've got some experience on that scenario as well. Lake Washington, which is an oxbow lake, and Eagle Lake, and several more along the Mississippi that I've fished through the years, it doesn't have any kind of river system. And really, it don't have a lot of creek channels in it. It's kind of like a bowl. And at first, I really struggled when I started crappie fishing those kind of lakes because I was always looking for contours and creek channels and river channels, like you're saying. But after that, I really started locating in the temperament of the shad, and we'll probably talk about this about every episode with me.
It always ends up at the shad, the bait fish.
looking for the bait fish and then looking to see what the bait fish are doing. You know, if they're scattered out in the water column, that's not going to be an area for me that I feel like being fed upon. So that's an area to me that I'm going to keep moving and looking for an area that has shad that's balled up tight. Hopefully that kind of gives you some insight on, you know, what I would do, and hopefully it'll improve your today's bite.
Yeah.
That was
Zeke
pretty good
Anderson,
there.
nice to hear from you, brother. Zeke said practicing multiple techniques makes all the difference, becomes proficient as many ways as possible. And that's really true. If you guys have lakes that you can fish for different styles of fishing, just makes you an all around better angler, depending on what you want out of it. But it's always cool to go learn, you know, deep water fishing, shallow, what we're talking about. Each day it seems like something different. So if you can do it all, that definitely helps. Do y'all use hand tied jigs from Lee Edwin Rambo? Absolutely. There's a time and place for hand tied jigs, man. Good question, but for sure, if you don't have any, I'd be getting some.
Yeah, you know, we use a little bit of everything, and it's
Yeah,
mainly I use a lot of soft plastics, but there's days that I believe that, you know, a hand towel might be the key.
yeah. Zeke just popped a real good question. Did you see it? What do you think about the Lowrance active target versus the Garmin live scope? Dun dun
He-
dun.
He's the electronics guru. What was he asking me
Yeah.
that for?
Hey, I can tell you, I've been in the boat of both. No comparison. And let me tell you, hummingbird, no comparison. This is just opinionated and what I see and am used to fishing again. But there is zero comparison in my mind between an active target and a hummingbird compared to Garmin. Garmin's completely ran away with it. Active target, and hummingbird are still trying to catch up. Again, that's my opinion. I've been in the best setups and seen it and used it. I've even used the Ranch trolling motor, everything like that. But it's again probably because I'm so used to the Garmin. But when people do ask me, because it's a big question between Lowrance and Garmin, and I've always, man, I'm telling them Garmin 100% of the time, a
Yeah.
1,000% of the time. But again, get on one if you're going to purchase one or look at it. Go look for yourself. But if you're new to it and you're just starting out, go fish with someone that has a Garmin, uses it a lot, and go fish with someone with Lowrance if you have that ability. But if you don't, get a Garmin.
You know, I can't honestly say I haven't been on a boat that has anything besides on live sonar in the Garmin, but
Yeah,
I've pretty much heard the same thing that you're saying there.
yeah.
From my experience, I don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm. So I run training live scope trips, and
Yeah.
it's not just Garmin. I will help people with their Lowrance. It's a little different, but same concept. So just training people how they use the electronics and what you're looking for on the screen mainly. As far as what they use and what the electronics do, that's way above my pay grade. But
Yeah.
I'm just going off of when you set it up and what you're looking at is so much more simpler in my mind of what you're seeing and things like that. But if there was a ladder, I would think it would go Hummingbird, Lowrance, and then Garmin. So Lowrance is, I feel like Lowrance is kind of coming. It's looking decent. You can still go catch fish. I know a lot of people that are great doing it, people that whoop my butt with Lowrance. So I'm not saying that Lowrance isn't just as good, but in my opinion, everything's a lot simpler with the Garmin. Zeke, what do you think about that Garmin and
Yeah.
Lowrance? You are the guy for all that. So what do you see? What do you think sell wise? You know, do you think Garmin's still top dog, or is Lowrance and Hummingbird coming up?
I got a question from YouTube from Tony Skeen. He's asking about how do we tie the do you tie your jig heads different other than a loop knot when using a slab tickler? I still use a loop knot, and the only thing that I do different is I actually put a bobber stop up above my loop knot, and that way it just ensures that blade doesn't go over my knot and get stuck down there. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm using a bobber stop right above my knot just to keep it from sliding over the knot. I'm just a loop knot kind of guy.
I'd say try both because I will tie the Palomar and let it stay over that knot because that's the clicking sound I was talking about. You can shake
Yep.
it and get a good tapping sound sometimes with that jig head. So heck, try either one, but I could see both working just as well.
Silent Stalker on a boat. I've heard a lot of good things about that product. I haven't used them, but I know a lot of the guys that do really good in tournaments have them on their boats as well in the past. Way before even live scope, it was a real big key on that.
Kirby says there's big news coming up with the Garmin trolling motor after iCast this year. Boy, I am
You can make
really
me spend more money.
really curious to what he's talking about there, because I don't know how much better they can get. Garmin's already so far above my brain that I'm as far as I kind of remember where my brush piles are. I'm always usually chasing either open water fish or I have my own brush piles, so I don't ever do all that fancy stuff. But heck, you can now take your remote or on your electronics, you can hit your brush pile and the trolling motor takes you to it and spot locks you on the brush pile. So what more can they do besides catch the fish for you? That
Man,
this
oh man.
now is as crazy as you want to take it. But a lot of it is like they even have so much stuff now that it's like a lot of pointless stuff that they just add on there, I guess, to say you can. It's never ending, it seems like.
I hear Greg Wartzall. He's one of my clients that fish with me a good bit. He's from the res area. He's asking me what the color and size for the res this week, and I'll show the two colors that's been good for me. And it probably won't be any shocker to anybody, but
I could already tell you what's coming.
yeah, orange and chartreuse. That's a 3-inch slab slayer, very big profile, and I kind of switched to that last week some. Just because we boated a fish, and first thing the fish did was spit out 3 gizzard shads about 3 inches long. So, on the flip side of things, sometimes a bigger profile is kind of the key. But this right here is mud dauber, and that's just in the swimmer with the tail end pinched off to mimic a baby shad, but it's definitely the res colors that I've been using a
The
116.
res.
Yeah.
Zeke finally messaged back on the Garmin,
Yeah.
and so Zeke said he agrees that Garmin is the king of facing sonar, forward-facing sonar. He's been on the boat with all of them as well, picking out big fish. Garmin is still on top, but Active Target 2 is coming soon, so we'll see. He says, "Yeah, and like I said, even if Active Target, they've got to do something crazy to try to, I don't know what they can do, honestly. Maybe I don't know. We literally have live video underwater, and it's as fast as you see it. I'm seeing the bite before I feel the bite sometimes. So, this is all there. So I guess we'll see. Active Target, you never know.
Another thing I'm gonna bring up right now, real quick, and I'm gonna say it at the end of the show as well, is next week. Today's bite's going to be actually on Sunday night this week. We're going to do it on Sunday night instead of Tuesday night. So mark your calendars, write it down, put it in your phone. But today's bite will be next Sunday night.
We got to get old Zeke Anderson on here sometime.
Oh yeah,
guy with a lot of knowledge on these electronics. Everybody asks, but Daryl Moore says there's a guy on OHIV that really likes Active Target. I don't know possibly who he's talking about, but no, I think that he does, but I think there's a difference between liking something and getting sponsorships and getting helped out on certain things. But he's talking about Josh Jones with his Active Target, and Josh Jones is killing giant bass out there with Active Target. He's killing crappie on Active Target too. So like I said, there's people that whoop my butt with Lowrance. I just definitely don't think that somebody should pick. Like I said, it was all opinionated, but
it's got Scott from YouTube. And I'm gonna pop up his question right there for everybody can see it as well. Does the Ultrix spotlight position for the GPS puck or from the trolling? And Zeke, you probably help us out with that one. Or from the trolling motor head? My pick is at the console. Seems to wander a bit when it's not in a decent wind. I've had an Ultrix before the Garmin, and I kept my puck as close to the trolling motor as I could get next to the bow of it. That's what I would consider to be the most accurate spot to put a GPS puck or have that GPS puck located would be right next to that trolling motor head.
not from the puck. Okay, I got you.
Hey, Brad.
Yeah, that'd be a good Zeke or old crappie
Yeah.
carrots. Dakota Griffin ties hair jigs back to the hair jig question. That guy asking, there's a good hair jig tying guy there, Dakota Griffin. He said crappie carrots. He's got a orange and chartreuse hair tie that's really well.
Mm-hmm. And tomorrow we're releasing another podcast. This was Wesley Miller, big Sasquatch outdoors over in Louisiana. Got a
Yeah.
little tongue tied there, but we're talking about wintertime crappie fishing. This guy here can put them in the boat, and everybody around the tournament world already knew that, but definitely want to tune in tomorrow. We're going to drop that podcast. And we had a really good time with Wesley. He's a cool cat, man. I don't know if you know him. I'm sure you
Cool guy.
do, Dustin.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've hung out with him in the tournament side of things. Hung out, we've had cabins next to each other and stuff. So great guy. That would be a blast to watch, and hopefully we can get him on here sometime.
Yeah.
I rumor has it they might start using him for that jerky commercial. No, I'm just joking.
See if we can get a response. He was on here earlier, so we'll see if
he might have tuned out, got tired of us. Oh, there's Zeke answering there.
jog feature.
Buck is only
There's your
for
answer.
jog feature. There it is. Not necessary for spot lock with Ultrex. That is, Garmin Lowrance doesn't need a puck. Thanks, Zeke. Appreciate it, brother.
We knew it was coming. There's the man.
Stay on here. We'll need you again in a second.
But just like I said, a current reminder will be today's bite's going to be next Sunday night, 7 p.m. We're going to have some more cool stuff come about it.
You bet.
Definitely, you want to make plans to watch tomorrow night's podcast with old Wesley on there. There he is.
There he is. He used to keep on no more crickets for you. Speaking of another hair-tied magic man, he ties what he calls crickets. Kill him on it. I mean, I think that's literally all he uses. Correct me if I'm wrong, Wesley, but 9 times out of 10, I'm pretty sure he's got a cricket tied on, and they're just little bitty hair jigs, and they're deadly. He uses them all over the U.S., and they work. So I think he sells them too. So back to the fella asking about hair jigs, Wesley Miller as well. Deadly. I'm telling you, he's
Them crickets.
Yeah, they're crickets. And if there's one tied with any more love than a Sasquatch in the wilderness, he lives in the swamps, okay, or bayou, in the bayou, on the bayou, whatever. He has to drive through 3 foot of water to get to his house. Go to his Facebook and look at him driving to his house just like last week. But yeah, them some handmade crickets there. You get them, ship you an order of those.
What? Another thing, it's a very cool topic that, talking about crickets, you hear these different names for jigs, and probably the most unique name I've ever heard for a crappie jig was by none other than Hank Williams Jr. He was in my boat a couple of years ago, and jig, needed a new one, and he says, hand me a dog tail.
That's funny.
And I was like to myself, and finally I said, Hank, what are you talking about? Dog tail. He said, one of them little jigs right there. And I said, well, why are you calling him a dog tail? And he said, if you look at it, it's just sitting there wagging all the time.
That is funny.
I'll never forget. He's the only person in my life that's ever called a jig.
Did you ever ask him? Did you ever ask him why he drinks or blows smoke?
I think you've heard the song.
Yeah. Dang right. That's so awesome. You get to have him in your boat.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Did you take him out last year, you said?
Yeah.
Man, that's great.
Back in October.
Don't he fly in and then you guys?
Yeah. He
rolls out. Man, that guy is a legend.
He's an icon, just like his hat says. But he definitely.
Zeke Anderson. Brad just name dropped Hank Williams Jr.
That's
Dang right, brother.
That's right.
Hey, we need to get him on here live. You want to talk about some questions? We need to get him on here with some whiskey and a cigar and just let him go. Wouldn't that be something?
That would be something.
Oh, dude, that would be iconic. You talk about some views. This thing would be popping, and I just want to have my face in the video.
Yeah. He's like I said, it's about even crappie names. I want to hear some other guys. Hey, shoot me some comments out there and tell us some of these unique names you heard for crappie.
Yeah.
Wesley's here with crickets. Hank Jr. with dog tails.
See, and Bobby Garland has so many insane names of just the colors of jigs. I
Oh
love
yeah,
it. Wait, they got, glitter critter, all these crazy little names
I've
of
named a couple of those through the years too.
yeah, really. See,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of crazy names out there. So I'm sure people have some good ones.
Let's see. Now, I want to hear some of these comments, but definitely want to thank everybody coming on here. We cannot do this show without Bobby Garland Bates.
You
They're
bet.
standing behind us, wanting us to do this for you guys, taking our time out. And make sure you hit subscribe and hit your notifications on so you don't miss any of these. And if you're coming across a question and want to ask it, no matter how simple it might sound to some of these guys that fish tournaments and fish for a living, ask it on here. Or message me, message Dustin, and
Yeah,
we will make a point to get your questions answered in the best way that we can. No
yeah,
matter how simple it might be,
for
ask
sure.
them.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. There's no stupid questions, and
There,
sometimes y'all could teach me something too. So don't think for a minute I got it all figured out. So I love to hear from y'all. A lot of great fishermen too in the comments, giving
man,
some good stuff too. So keep up with that. Keep up with the comments and stuff that y'all are asking. It teaches us, like I said, when I'll ask Brad something or you guys ask a question, we both have different opinions. Everybody's got one, but
that's right.
yeah, I appreciate y'all very much.
You know
Back,
it.
back down. Yeah, that's a good one, Zeke. I've heard him holler that maybe a couple times.
What was that?
Ash down, smack down.
Yeah, yeah.
Crappie bullets. I like that one. Crappie
That's
bullets, good one.
yeah.
Crappie bullets.
John Lee is my buddy up at Lake Washington.
Oh, that's cool. And Zeke just caught, I believe, a giant spoonbill, and he was calling it gigante.
I want
Gigante.
spell that, Zeke. Put it on the comments. Spell that for me without
So
googling.
you know what's hilarious is I literally I don't even want to admit this, but I'm sitting there, I'm like, gigante. What is that? Is that like another language? I'm thinking so hard, and then someone in the comments said gigantor, like he meant like giganta. But I'm like, oh, he said gigante being Zeke, so I'm like, oh, I got it now. I'm so glad I didn't ask him what that meant. Yeah, there he spelt it for y'all.
Yeah,
Gosh.
there you go. Close enough for me.
He's on top of it, dude.
Yeah, he's on it.
No.
Crappie Crane, he's got a question from the YouTube side of things. Let's see, I'm gonna pop it up there. I'm looking to upgrade my Tarova and its noise. What are you tournament pros using as far as trolling motors?
Man,
Come
there's
on.
a lot of options. I'm using a Garmin though. Yeah, I mean, he asked what I'm using. I'm using a Garmin, but s- several options, and I don't think that there's one a whole
Yeah.
lot better. Whatever's comfortable for you. Garmin to me, I like it. A lot of people don't like the. I have a wireless foot pedal, and it's sometimes catchy and drags a little bit. And then is it Ultrex that's I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah, cable driven. Is that my right there?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
attached.
So when it's attached and cable driven, everything's instant. Chasing open water fish is easier to some people for that too. So
I use a Garmin as well. And one of the things I really like about the Garmin is whenever I get two people in the front of the boat, I can still sit behind them with a wireless foot pedal with the Garmin and still control the boat, just like if I was sitting up front.
absolutely. Here's another crazy one that I do is I'll go trolling through coasts when they're on the. This is taking live scope to another level, but when they're under docks, you can deploy your trolling motor, go about 3 or 4 miles per hour. I'm back in the console of my boat, but I have my live scope tuned into the front live scope where my trolling motor's at. I've got my foot pedal in the back of the boat, and I'm turning it under the docks when you can see with your live scope at your console because I mean
Yep.
you can chase. So I've sat at the back of the boat watched my screen chasing fish for clients up front. When there's 3 or 4 guys, I'll stay on a brush pile back in the back of my console. So the wireless foot pedal is a game changer for me. But yeah, one time my back unit wasn't working, so I was sitting back and using my foot pedal while I was trolling. It was pretty cool. But like I said, there's a lot of things with a Garmin that you can't do with
You know,
other.
the thing I would suggest with that, if you was going to make, and then that's a major purchase in my budget range, but get out there and ask some of your local fishermen or even a guide in your area. Hey, do you mind taking me out for 10 minutes and just showing me your trolling motor? I want to see what you're running. If it's
Exactly.
old tricks, get in somebody's boat or, and actually put your foot on it.
I agree with that. Um, Carlos just asked a really good question on thoughts on the new ACT format, having every legal fish count. So, man, I think that is going to be absolutely wild. I don't know. There's certain places that they have made these tournaments. I don't know how a marshal keeps up, first of all. And then, second of all, when they say legal fish, is it legal fish for that lake? So, when you come to, say, Grand Lake, my home lake here, a 10-inch fish is a legal fish. So, you're saying every 10-inch fish they're going to measure? And Zeke will be able to answer that question. But, Zeke, I'm wondering, will they measure every legal fish for that lake, or will they make their own up, like a legal fish being a pound or what? Because I think it can get so out of hand so fast. And then when your marshal gets the fish, and this is just me, when your marshal gets a fish, do you have to wait for him to weigh that fish before you catch another one? That's what I'm curious about. Because if you're gonna have two guys in a boat, there's a few questions, but two guys in a boat, how's that gonna work? And then marshal wise, they have to have 50 marshals per tournament, and I feel like they're really going to struggle with that. But I may be wrong, and these are good answers that Zeke will have. I guarantee it, because he's kind of in the loop with that. Maybe we pull him on here sometime and ask tournament questions like that, because that can get so crazy. I've got so many questions about the ACT one. I just guess they have to have one first to see how all that goes.
I think Stephen just answered your question right there, and that was quick.
Oh,
no more
okay.
than two fish in the boat at one time. There's your answer.
Perfect. They probably have a rule sheet, and I don't do my homework. So perfect. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it. Or Stephen, however. The rules say it has to weigh 1 pound or more. No more.
I like the fact that, they're really digging into conservation with that. So my hat's off to that organization to really do something like that.
Do you think that's conservation then? You think that's going to help that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Got you.
Less stress on a fish. You're not transporting it in your boat all day and releasing at the end of the day. And it goes back to a podcast that one of our first ones I don't know if it's still our top of the podcast, but with the biologist John Johnson over in Oklahoma. And he kind of talks about the whole deal when it comes to that a lot. But, I think it's a good thing personally, but I'm not a biologist.
Zeke just said it will vary lake to lake based on expected size of fish in lake, which would make sense. I'm excited about the format, and yes, one fish in a boat at a time. So, okay. Man, what do I think about it? I think it'll be awesome. It'll be a blast, and it will open up a whole new era of, like, a bigger window of winners and top guys, I think. And I could be totally wrong, but maybe it will help. Maybe it'll help the sport for more people willing to do that, because it's not just 7 fish. We'll see. Like I said, I think the first couple will get a lot better idea, but I am very excited for the Grand Lake one. If I get to be a part of it, I know that there's only 50 boats per lake or per tournament, and I don't know when sign up, if you get booted, or when you have to sign up, if they just do like Crappie Masters. But I'm excited. That would be a super cool opportunity, something completely new than what we're doing. So why not? One fish in the boat at a time. So, that will be one fish in the boat at a time. Means you got to probably not fish until that fish is thrown back. So that'll slow things down a little bit, but not too bad. That'll be so fun.
A lot of good stuff about that. A lot of guys are real curious about it, and hopefully we can get some answers to that.
Yeah, here's some good questions coming in. Zeke says I'm banned at Grand Lake. Zeke, I'm telling you right now, everybody's acting like that. I'll be the first one to get my butt whooped. That's how it always works at home lakes. You hardly see the home lake guys anymore do any better than the average fish in the tournament.
Why do you think that is?
Because now everybody has their next level when it comes to tournament. They have the same electronics, same stuff. There's no more hiding stuff. This is the only format that I will say I might have an advantage, because now it comes to how many more spots do you have to fish, because you're going for numbers. You're not going for size of fish. When there's two places in the entire lake of Grand Lake that I would go to catch big fish, and they're going to be there and I'm going to win by a long shot, or they're not going to be there and I'm going to have to scrounge and do what everybody else is doing. But that one spot would be found by 10 people, and 10 people that fish just as good as me. So then we're all fishing for those same big fish, and there's going to be several weights just as good as mine. But now I might have 300 or 400 waypoints where there's 100 fish on each waypoint, and I'm going to go there and try to wear all these fish out when these guys have been there 3 days or 4 days or whatever it is, and may not have that many spots.
Burn through them faster.
And exactly, and they may not know what the fish have been doing the last. So this scenario might be the only time a home body person has a chance. But other than that, when you're trying to catch the big 7 fish, they always live in small areas of the lake. The big fish do. So you're getting 50 guys in a tournament. 25 of those guys are going to be in the same winning fish stringer, and there's going to be 5 to 10 guys that are exactly the same good fishermen, and there's going to be different weights. So your local fishermen, just like at Grenada, how many local guides that guide there for a living, they won't even make top 20. So sometimes there's big differences to all that with tournament wise.
Yeah, well, I asked him about if you're spider rigging and you catch 3 or 4
man.
at one time, and that does happen occasionally.
I guarantee it.
What do you do?
That's a good question. That's why I'm thinking maybe we should go. And they're not going to, but one person a boat would make more sense to that, in my opinion, because when you have 2 guys, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, a lot of questions
There's
about
that. A lot of questions coming up about that too. That, a lot of good questions. When you have multiple poles fishing, that is going to be tough. I don't know. Maybe you have to keep the fish in the water. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, a lot about the spider rigging. I agree, and that's one of the things that a lot of guys, older school guys, were looking forward to, is being able to do some of these different techniques and have a fighting chance.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I feel like spider riggers would still have a good chance, but man, when you're sitting like on a brush pile and still 2 poles is going to be more than you could handle. So I couldn't imagine trying to spider rig and getting into all that mess. I don't think. I mean, yeah, just depends, I guess. And then chasing Roman fish and stuff, it's still going to be. I still don't think we'll see very many spider riggers in that style of tournament, even if they let them.
And today we hit 6,600 subscribers on YouTube. Appreciate you guys on YouTube subscribing. You guys on Facebook, we've got a really good following on there. Definitely appreciate you. And, take a minute and go through your friends list and invite some of your buddies that are crappie fishermen, or even want to get into crappie fishing. That way they can join us and ask us some more questions. But
for sure,
keep these good questions coming, guys. I appreciate everybody tonight.
Thank you guys very much.
But,
thanks for helping on some of these. I keep missing a couple, and then I see somebody say someone's name and stuff. So I appreciate y'all. This is a blast.
We got Justin there. Wesley, I mean, it's still, man, I appreciate everybody coming on here tonight.
You bet.
But, we'll come on here all night. And if
Ooh, Wesley, that's a good one.
We'll go ahead and we'll spit out Wesley, but we're going to have to cut it out.
Yeah. He's saying time management and looking for larger fish may pay off in the long run. I don't know. We'll see. That's a real big technique in that style of tournament. It's who's going to go for numbers and who's going to go for big fish. And there's certain lakes that will work, and there's certain lakes that numbers will absolutely destroy looking for big fish. So we'll see. Some of those lakes, I mean, it's just different. Every lake's there. That's why they picked a perfect variety of lakes, because there will be so many different ways to win tournaments like that. Good night, Johnny from Arkansas. I appreciate you guys very much. We're probably well past my time here.
Sunday night, today's bite will be on Sunday night, 7 p.m. I'm going on my little cruise next week, so I'm going to come back tanned up and ready for some spring spawn stuff.
Oh, my gosh. Yes, sir. Tanned up. You already starting to tan a little bit now.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, we'll see y'all. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Appreciate everybody. Until next time.
Holla.
Holla.